Where to begin? I watched a movie the other day, and Lady Mary from Downton Abbey was in it, and I don't remember the name of the movie, and I'm terrible with actress and actors' names, so apologies. I don't remember her. I don't remember the actress's name either, but in the movie, Lady Mary says, "There's fuckery afoot." It was a great line, and it was even better because it was Lady Mary delivering it. Well, there is some fuckery afoot today. Craven fuckery, dead of the night poltroonery. So let's get into it. Roe v. Wade is dead, effectively dead. However you want to quibble and equivocate, fine. I don't think we should. The doctors and the clinics in Texas have stopped providing abortion. The right to an abortion doesn't exist. You cannot get it if you are in Texas right now. And I don't think we would quibble or equivocate if this were an analogous situation where we were talking about free speech or going to church or owning a gun. If a law was passed that prevented you from going to church or carrying a gun or owning a gun, nobody would be afraid to say, certainly nobody on the right would be afraid to say that those rights are dead. So Roe is dead. I'm angry. I actually misspelled Roe in a tweet this morning. It sat there for a few hours. I missed it because I have this case of just rage blindness. I was so angry I couldn't even read it straight. And I should say at the outset here, let's say a few things first. One, I am not going to get to everything in this rant. And that does not mean that what I miss is unimportant. It simply means that this is a seismic shift in American law and that I have rage blindness. I'm angry. So let's start there. Let's also say that abortion is healthcare. I have a pregnant sister in Texas right now, and I am very deathly afraid for her because abortion is healthcare and complications arise. So let's stipulate that at the top. Let's also say that this law will not stop abortions. It will only stop safe abortions. And it will come down inevitably on the hardest on poor Black and brown people. And when you pair that disparate impact with the mob violence, the mob enforcement aspect of this law, the mob rule over the womb, the bounty hunters open carrying, the vigilantism. Remember, they ran Biden's bus off the road. They lionized Kyle Rittenhouse for killing 2 people. They're flooding school boards with hatred and vitriol and aggression. They attacked the beating heart of our democracy to stop an election and defend that assault to this day. Right? The mob rule over the womb is hearkening back to some of America's worst history. But the rich folks are probably going to be fine. They'll just fly to a freer jurisdiction. They'll probably be all right. I'm also not going to blame RBG here tonight. You can take that nonsense elsewhere for a number of reasons. A, she did more for women than I ever will, and I'm in no position to argue otherwise. Neither are you. B, you're looking at it with hindsight, not putting yourself in her shoes at the time. And if you admit it, you didn't think Trump would win either. Hell, I remember thinking, I'm glad that Merrick Garland is getting stalled because Hillary's going to nominate somebody more liberal than that. And see, it's just not, it's not a politically savvy observation. It misses quite a lot. So if you want to blame RBG, don't do that. Instead, read the thread in the description below from Imani Gandhi. She nails it. That's all I will have to say on that subject, and not going to bother with anybody in the comments who wants to talk about any of those things differently. RBG or the right to an abortion. Finally, no, not finally. I'm not even close to final. I'm also tonight not going to go over the finer points of the Texas law or of the Supreme Court's decision. And I'm sorry if you came here for that, but no. I suggest listening to my friends at Opening Arguments. They usually cover these things in depth. I'd be shocked if they don't. Again, there are a lot of experts and a lot of people that are much smarter than me, law professors and public interest lawyers that I admire who are writing and talking about this extensively. But they're also searching for some sort of coherent legal philosophy, some jurisprudential harmony or intellectual consistency. But those are artifacts from a different time. And that's partly why I've made the choice to bypass the finer points of this decision tonight. But there are a couple other reasons that I need to lay out. One is the Texas law that this court upheld or did not strike down or did not stop from going into effect is clearly unconstitutional. It was written to be unconstitutional. They all know it violates Roe. They passed it for that reason. It was written to be unconstitutional. Right? So whatever happens next, wherever this goes next, whether it goes back to the Fifth Circuit or to the district court or actually gets again paused by whatever happens, we are coming back to this point, to a Roe that is at best a husk, a shell, a gutted nonentity. Let's not kid ourselves. This is the point. This is why they did this. Okay, so the other thing that I think is important here is that focusing on the legal finery buys into the myth of a court that is motivated by the rule of law, of a court motivated by principle, of a court that places the Constitution over their personal religious whims. And that is not this court. This is not a court concerned with principles or the rule of law. This is a court motivated by God and the Republican Party. This is a court concerned with privileging white Christian nationalism by codifying that dominant caste status before it loses its place. This is a court of Christian privilege. And you can really see that in the hypocrisy. You know, I mean, many of the same people agonizing for the first time, right, over the women in Afghanistan are cheering this decision, robbing Americans of their bodily autonomy. Right, the same people who are saying it's against their freedom to have a mask mandate or a vaccine mandate are perfectly happy to go inside a woman's womb and tell her what she can and can't do. Not even that, they're going to have their neighbors do it. They're going to band together and sue her and collect $10,000 bounty. Why don't you do that with masks? Why don't you do that with vaccines? Pandemic be done in a couple weeks. And that hypocrisy you can also see at the Supreme Court. And I don't think that the average person realizes that. And that is part of what I want to explain here today. And I wrote about this. I actually started writing about this a while ago in the new book that I have coming out next year called Weaponizing Religious Freedom. But I adapted a little section of that today for an article in Religion Dispatches. There's a link below. You can go read it if you want. I wanted to show the hypocrisy of this court. So cast your mind all the way back, way back to April of this year. Cast your mind back to April of this year. COVID cases are rising after a March dip, though, not quite as high as they were in January, but the virus is still raging. And those of us that, at this point that hadn't politicized the lethal pandemic, we're ready to get vaccinated. And California still had the virus. I think 100 people or so a day were dying, thousands of COVID cases. And they had a public health order in place. And depending, the order was meant to be flexible. So it would respond to the infection rates in an area. And basically 4 tiers. And, your infection rates determined where you are. And it limited in-home gatherings. So it either banned them or limited them to basically, a percentage of the capacity. Or if you're a private home, you could have 3 households getting together. And that was for whatever purpose. Whatever your purpose in getting together was, if you were in one of these areas, 3 households. Okay, everybody was treated equally. That included religious gatherings. That included secular gatherings. So whether you wanted to, worship in your house or have a birthday party in your house, everybody was treated equally. But to some Christians, equality is persecution. And a pastor in Santa Clara challenged the rule because studying the Bible is more important than other people's lives. So he'd been meeting once a week for an in-home Bible study. I think 10 people showed up the most. And he claimed that this rule violated his religious freedom because it hampered his Bible study, right? First of all, there was no, I'm just going to go ahead and delete this guy real quick. Hang on. Okay. Yeah, I think that guy's done. Sorry, everybody. Okay. So, yeah. Where was I? Trolls are so fun. Okay. They could have studied the Bible on their own. There's no burden on their religion. They could have met virtually. They could have done any number of things, right? They didn't have to meet in person in a house to exercise their religion. But again, the pandemic was politicized, and they wanted to claim that Christian privilege. So they challenged it in court. And the Ninth Circuit, there was a 3-judge panel. 2 W appointees and a Trump appointee actually upheld the rule because it treated everybody equally. But again, equality is not the goal of these justices, of those justices on our Supreme Court, of Kavanaugh and Alito and Thomas and Gorsuch and Barrett. They don't want equality. They want Christian privilege. So those 5 justices, the same who struck down Roe late last night, went out of their way to decide this case when they didn't need to. And that to me is just the key point here. They didn't have to decide this case because by the time it got to the Supreme Court, even on this expedited shadow docket, the state had announced that a new rule would take effect on April 15th. And the judges knew about this new rule, and it allowed Bible studies and prayer meetings and worship services at homes with up to 25 people. So that was in Santa Clara County, and it included this Bible study. So the people who were challenging the rule would have been able to have their Bible study, no problem. All the Supreme Court had to do to make that happen was nothing. It's possible the new rule would have been in place before the next Bible study anyway. But that's not what this court is out to do. This court wants to decide cases in favor of Christian nationalism. It is eager to. So, ignoring procedure and longstanding judicial principles, the court jumped in and rushed in to decide this case on April 9th with another midnight ruling. So 6 days, but 5 really, given how late the decision dropped, before the rule was going to change. 5 days before the rule was going to change. The court rushed to decide a case that it didn't need to decide. And the 5 crusading justices rewrote the First Amendment using this emergency shadow docket procedure. And the shadow docket is just this expedited procedure for cases to get to the Supreme Court. There's very little briefing. There's no oral argument. It's a very opaque procedure. It's basically law light, right? It's not a full briefing of a case. And it happens fast. And it's not supposed to, and has not for the longest time, substantively changed the law. And by that, I mean the overall law. It doesn't alter the way things are. Anyway, the Supreme Court rewrote the First Amendment using the shadow docket, and they did it in 9 paragraphs. The opinion was 9 paragraphs long. I mean, really let that sink in. They jumped on the case. They wanted to decide this eagerly before the rule expired. And they did something similar in the Cuomo case that dropped on Thanksgiving. So the 5 crusading justices jumped in and rewrote the First Amendment in 9 paragraphs. In April, right? This was not long ago. So once Trump and McConnell forced Amy Coney Barrett onto the country and onto the court, the 5 COVID justices began rewriting the law using the shadow docket. And that is exactly what they just did to gut Roe versus Wade. And you can really see the hypocrisy here. It used this same emergency procedure with minimal or no briefing to rob Texans of their bodily autonomy and to institute this vicious mob rule. And the piece I wrote today, I called them the 5 justices of the judicial apocalypse. Right? They ignored procedure and precedent to privilege this Bible-perusing pastor, but they did nothing to protect the constitutional right to an abortion for Texans. Nothing. and doing nothing while a clearly and deliberately unconstitutional law went into effect. That's what happened the other night. Because the Supreme Court refused to act and because the Fifth Circuit is chock-a-block full of Trump activist judges as well, the law went into effect and the Supreme Court did nothing. And when the justices, cheers, pause for that one. When the justices finally acted on the Texas law late last night, they allowed it to go into effect. They killed Roe. They stole that hallowed constitutional right from us. And this time, they did it in a single paragraph. One paragraph. A textual shrug. Jurisprudential. Meh. And that's why I'm not going to get into the legal finer points in this talk, because any attempt to read into that one paragraph some sort of legal principle or jurisprudential consistency is a fool's errand. This was unprincipled in every sense of the word. This was 5 people on a divine mission with the power to consummate it, so they did. That's all this was. One paragraph to overturn the Constitution. One paragraph to relegate half the country to second-class status. They gave us 9 paragraphs a few months ago when they were trying to privilege Christians. So that's 10 paragraphs. 10 paragraphs to essentially rewrite American constitutional law. And I really cannot overstate the enormity of that theft or the hypocrisy. Right? And the hypocrisy of the Supreme Court since Barrett has been foisted on the nation has made absolutely one thing clear. And I hope I've made that clear so far. This is not a court that is driven by law or justice. This is a court that is driven by partisan politics and Christian supremacy. And friends, they are just getting started. They're coming for contraception next and soon. They are just getting started. So, listen, religion plays a huge role in all this. First, it is dictating the decisions of many of these judges. And there's data to back this up. I put it in the Religion Dispatches article. I'm going to have it in the new book. I have it pretty extensively in the new book. They're not following the law. They're following their God's law. And religion plays a role in another way. Our reluctance as a society to offend religious sensibilities helped get us here. Now, this is partly a holdover from when Christianity would torture and burn those who said mean things about its omnipotent God. But unwarranted deference to baseless beliefs helped confirm Brett Kavanaugh and Amy Coney Barrett to the High Court. That kowtowing landed us in a politicized pandemic and a climate crisis, neither of which we will be able to solve with this Supreme Court. Disinformation is literally killing us. Across the board, Americans are dying of preferential ignorance, choosing disinformation over reality. And that original disinformation, the original sin of disinformation is religion and gods and holy books. Right? They laid the foundation for genuflecting before a comforting lie instead of venerating a hard truth. Why? Because God. And so here we are. A court that has abandoned the Constitution in favor of the Bible, subjugated we the people to we the Christians, subjugated anybody with a womb to a mob. That is where we are. And it's going to get a lot worse. You've already seen that the other states are looking to pass these exact laws. Of course they are. Texas just got away with it. There's no abortions happening in Texas right now. The other states will be doing it in no time. Florida is already on its way. Jesse, thank you. Jesse's saying to contact your members of Congress. They need to hear our voices now more than ever. That is absolutely right. Now, I'm tempted to end there. I'm tempted to end with a court that has abandoned the Constitution in favor of the Bible. That's where we are. I won't. Hey, that's going to get you. Yeah, this is not a channel where you get to argue that abortion shouldn't be a right. That's not what we're doing tonight. I'm not going to leave you in total despair. I'm tempted to. I really am. I'm tempted to just go back to that. What's to be done? Actually, let's do this first. What's being done? Well, there's the Women's Health Protection Act that was introduced in the House and in the Senate on June 8th. The Women's Health Protection Act is a federal law that would stop states from banning and restricting abortion. Good. Excellent. Even better, Nancy Pelosi has said that it's going to get a vote later this month. So, as Jesse said, get on the phones. And thank you for the super chat, Jesse. It's very, very kind. Get on the phones. Call your members of Congress. The other side is, and I'm so tired of hearing people say, well, my member of Congress is a crazy person. All the more reason for them to hear from you, from a flood of you. Scare them. Let them know how wrong they were to make this decision. Scare them by flooding them with phone calls is what I mean. Scare their political future, right? They are out there to get reelected. That is their goal. And if 1,000 people call and protest something for every one pro-lifer that says, thanks for robbing women of their bodily autonomy, robbing Texans, of their bodily autonomy, that's going to make an impact. Get on the phones. Tell the House and tell the Senate to pass the Women's Health Protection Act. It's great. I have a reservation. I'll tell you about it in a second. Biden has directed the Department of Health and Human Services, HHS, and the DOJ to look into creative solutions. And there are some options out there, though not as many as you might think. This law is crazy in its way. I don't think it's genius the way some people are saying. I think it's morbid and disgusting. Think about how many ways Republicans have worked to end and restrict abortion and abortion protections. Think about the Hyde Amendment, for instance. Okay, there are landmines written into every federal law. There are court decisions undermining all kinds of federal laws. You may have heard, for instance, of the KKK Act or 1985 Section 1985 3. And I'm not going to get into all of this, right? But the Supreme Court curbed the use of that rule specifically for abortion rights in the early 1990s in a pair of cases, the Bray and the Goodell-Doug cases. Thanks, Justice Scalia. So there's not as many options as you might think out there. But still, good. It's better than nothing. But here is the thing. None of this or the other creative solutions matter unless they can survive a challenge in a hostile federal judiciary. And they cannot. And I think the Supreme Court made that pretty goddamn clear. So our only solution, a prerequisite to any other solution, is court reform and expansion. That is it. Hey, you want to yank the jurisdiction from the Supreme Court? You want to get into some jurisdiction stripping? Great. We could do that for a bit. Where does it leave us? You want the Fifth Circuit and the Texas Supreme Court deciding these cases? That's not going to be any better. We need court reform and expansion across the entire federal judiciary. Don't just get focused on the Supreme Court. This law went into effect because the court did nothing. And it was able to do nothing and have the law go into effect because the circuit courts are broken, because the Fifth Circuit is overrun with Trump judges and Christian nationalists, because our federal judiciary is broken. And yeah, we're talking about court packing because the courts have already been packed. They are packed right now. McConnell and Trump and the Federalist Society did it. McConnell didn't steal seats for his own good. He did it for this reason. The courts are gone. They are a partisan body. They are an arm of the Republican Party. This is the only option. And that, of course, means blowing up the filibuster. Good, get rid of it. Throw the whole Senate out for all I care. So, what can you do? First, go support activists in Texas. I put a number of frontline groups down in Texas. The American Constitution Society sent out this list today. Starts with the Bridge Collective and West Fund. I put links to their websites down below. Go support them. They're going to need help. They're going to get hit with some heavy lawsuits, almost certainly. Go help them out. And if you've got money to burn, or you've got skills, go hire some private investigators. Have them look into the background of some of these prominent Texas politicians. I would be shocked. I mean, shocked if they don't have mistresses and abortions along with the skeletons in their closet. Check out the mega preachers while you're at it, because I'm sure all the people who are going to be crowing from the pulpit on Sunday mornings, I'm sure a decent percentage of them, I won't venture a guess as to how many, I'm sure a decent percentage of them could be found wanting under this law. Which does bring another aspect of this into, this is such a sick law. There is no exemption for rape or incest. You could have a parent literally rape their child. And if the child gets an abortion, the parent could turn them in and get a $10,000 bounty. But hey, if you've got money to burn, you could get a $10,000 bounty if you find one of these officials. Look, I don't know what's going to happen next. The next thing that's going to happen in Texas is chaos. This is going to be complete and utter chaos. But I told you at the outset where we are going with this. We're coming back to no row. That's what this is going to be. I think I've been clear about that for a long time now. And I've also been clear that row is not the end game. I don't even think contraception is the end game. And we're not slouching towards Gilead, right? We're a boulder rolling downhill. All right. Those of you lovely, thank you, Teresa and Dante. I really appreciate that. Teresa says, I live in a blue state with great senators and reps. I feel like they're on my side. But those of us in blue states should also call and show our support and make our voices heard. Absolutely. Absolutely. Give them the power to feel confident in their decisions, to say things, to whip other votes. Absolutely. You should always make your voice heard. It's all you've got. And Dante has 2 rules he lives by. Vote always. Yes. And never pass up an opportunity to defeat a Republican. That's a moral code. Okay. If you've got questions, I'll think about answering them right now. We've gone for a half hour. That was me just straight up ranting for a half hour. I've written about this quite a bit. The new book is going to cover a good chunk of this. I had that chapter focusing on something else, but we'll move it to this and update as this horror show unfolds. Yeah, I'm worried about my sister. I am. Thank you. Yeah, no, listen, I know I see some people making this suggestion. Texas Right to Life has a form that you can fill out anonymously. I posted about that very, very early yesterday. Do not fill out that form. Don't Bart Simpson it. Don't go do that. I made that very clear on the Twitter things. Anyway, Matt Walsh, yeah, that guy's awful. Oh, I see I'm missing things. Michael, thank you, buddy. Really appreciate that. I really appreciate anybody getting copies of the Founding Myth and sending them out. Can women leave the state to get an abortion and go back? And if they go back home to Texas, yeah. I mean, these are things that we don't know. And again, these are the fine points of the law that I don't want to get into necessarily. But the mob rule aspect of this is meant to make it impossible for people to get abortions, to help get abortions, to be anywhere near it, and to in the speech arena, we would call this a chilling effect, right? The goal is to scare everybody into not being able to do that. I'm not positive that a woman, it doesn't matter. They would absolutely be sued. Okay. Anybody that flees and gets an abortion would absolutely be sued. You're going to run into a ton of jurisdictional things, fine, all of that, but it's going to happen. Right. The point is to overwhelm every abortion provider in the state with lawsuits, which is going to happen. The point is to flood the courts, to make it so that everybody is involved and wondering whether or not they're helping out with an abortion, to scare people into overstepping and asking, that they keep using the example of the Uber drivers to the point where the rideshare drivers were the point where I'm getting annoyed with it. But I mean, the point is to make it impossible by empowering the mob, by creating other Kyle Rittenhouses. I mean, they're doing a January 6th on anybody in Texas with a womb. So, yeah. Okay. You are gone. If anybody wants to be an admin, drop I can see I need an admin when I do these things. Should have seen that coming. Well, what, you want to talk about abortion on YouTube? And you expect your comments not to turn into a cesspool with people? Yeah. So maybe if anybody wants to volunteer for that for the future, that'd be lovely. If anybody's got other questions, I can. Sherry, thanks for being a voice. When's my new book due? The manuscript's due at the end of November, but the publishing backlog, the publishing pipeline, printers, paper, all that stuff has been just kind of really ripped to shreds by COVID. So they don't really know. For instance, the paperback version of the Founding Myth is coming out. Was supposed to come out in a couple of days, but they had to push it back till November. For those of you who don't know, I have a whole brand new epilogue in the Founding Myth on January 6th. What happened that day, the role that Christian nationalism played in stoking the disinformation, the big lie, and providing a permission structure for them to invade the Capitol. So anyway, all that's to say, it'll come out sometime next year, but not exactly sure when. The working title is Weaponizing Religious Freedom. Stay tuned. I'm not going to let you not hear about it. I'm going to be talking about it. So yeah, HIPAA is not a thing. Forget about HIPAA. I can't answer this question, so I hesitate to wade in here, but I can see a couple people have mentioned something about this. We don't know what this means for the health and safety of the mother exception that you normally see. And it's written into Section 2 of the law via a mention of Roe and Planned Parenthood v. Casey. So it's not at all clear to me. And this is one of the reasons that I'm worried about my sister. It's not at all clear to me that a woman in distress in Texas, having a baby whose life is threatened in delivery or something like that, or with an early delivery. I mean, there are tons and tons of stories about this, about abortion laws essentially torturing women because of this. And now it's empowering a mob of people to go after the doctors who are going to be providing that care, to go after the hospitals who are going to be providing that care, to go after the nurses who are in the room, to go after the janitors who clean it. Okay. I mean, that is what they're trying to do here. So whether or not the doctor honors their Hippocratic oath, I expect that they would. What comes next? That's what they're after. And then how does that lawsuit, which is going to make a ton of news, affect the other doctors and OBGYNs who are trying to save lives and trying to provide healthcare, because abortion is healthcare? Anyway, so, okay, let me see. Yeah, HIPAA is just not a thing, folks. Just don't worry about HIPAA. It's like Marjorie Taylor Greene saying it's a HIPAA violation for her to be asked. I can't even remember. That was such a dumb comment of hers that it's a joke in my head now. I was texting with Andrew Torres over at Opening Arguments and about all the HIPAA violations I was facing. Yeah, they could question a miscarriage. Absolutely. You have a miscarriage? Okay, we're going to sue you and find out if that was really a miscarriage. Did you take any pills? Did you do anything to possibly hurt yourself? I think you did. I was looking in your window and I saw you doing X. Absolutely. I mean, think of yeah, absolutely. So I'm not gonna opine on that. Yes, this law is meant to empower the worst in people. That is part of its purpose. Yeah, Casey, it is a witch hunt. Okay, so we've been going for 40 minutes. I'm not raged out. I'm still going to be angry for a very long time. I cannot stress enough that if you are not talking about court reform, you're off point. You're off the message. Women's Health Protection Act, great, fantastic, let's do it. We got to have court reform too. The DOJ is going to figure out a way to go after all of these people under the KKK Act that are going to try to sue women for exercising their sue Texans for exercising their constitutional rights to an abortion. Good, great, do it. Still is going to end up at the Supreme Court. Court expansion, court reform across the board is necessary. Okay. That means you got to be talking about it. It's up to us. We got to give Congress the political will. Yeah. Excellent point. And I kind of wanted to touch on this earlier. I didn't, but I'll say this, Marissa, the court came for voting rights first. It's no accident that they struck down, they have gutted the Voting Rights Act before they went after Roe. I mean, that is no accident. That was 100% deliberate, because they know what the backlash for this decision is going to be. I mean, sure, they're going to watch and hope they get away with things. I mean, you can see the craven midnight poltroonery, right? That's why they did it in the middle of the night. That's why they did it. Oh, so you have people like at the National Review out there saying, no, this is just procedural, right? They're giving them this. They also, let's be clear, they also want Roe as a boogeyman for the elections, right? The Republican Party absolutely wants to be able to say, if you don't get out and vote, how are we ever going to overturn Roe? So it's no excuse that there's no accident, that they went after voting rights first. Yeah. Satanic Temple and Judaism. I mean, abortion is a right in Judaism. And the Satanic Temple is doing some creative things with abortion and their religion. The problem with all of that is, which I tried to really hit earlier, is that this is a court of Christian privilege. Sometimes minority religions get swept along with it. But this court is not going to accept religious freedom as an excuse to get an abortion. They're not going to do it. I mean, yes, if the court had any intellectual consistency, any integrity, but this court does not have that. And I know, okay, fine, John Roberts, fine. John Roberts is all for this decision. Okay, he wants Roe gone. John Roberts is as conservative as they come. The only dissent he has ever read from the bench was his dissent in the Obergefell decision. You can listen to it on the Oyez website, OYEZ. He's angry. He is a deeply, deeply conservative man, but Roberts is smart enough to understand that the legitimacy of the court is its only currency. It depends on the legitimacy of the court to be able to check all the boxes on the conservative wish list. And the 5 COVID justices are done with that incrementalism. So Roberts agrees with the end goal here. He just disagrees with how to get there. And you can see that if you read his dissent in this case. He's talking all about procedure, procedure, procedure. Same thing in the COVID cases and the religious freedom cases. Procedure, procedure, procedure. He's not disagreeing with the merits. And I don't think he would. He is a deeply conservative man. Okay. Drink about it and stay angry. They both make good fuel. Yellow spot is good stuff. Okay, folks, I'm done. That's 45 minutes of rage. If you've got questions, you know where to find me on social media. I'm happy to talk more about them. Again, there are much smarter people out there, especially on this topic than me. I would really go check out the Rewire News group. Imani and Jessica over there, Professor Melissa Murray, Leah Littman, professor at Michigan, just some really fantastic, brilliant minds. Ellie Mistal, writing for The Nation, is like one of my favorite writers out there, and certainly legal commentators. He's been on point on this as well. So go read some of them. Go listen to them. They're smarter than I am. And listen to Lady Mary from Downton Abbey, right? There's a lot of fuckery afoot right now. Okay. Good night, everybody.